Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about apparently people are mad at Adele because she won an award show in Britain, and it was, I guess, their sort of big award show, and they got rid of gender sort of categories. It wasn't like best female artist, it wasn't best male artist. They blended them together, and she decided to say, she's glad that she won and all, but she does enjoy being a female artist. So some people were like, thank you for standing up, thank you for saying that. And some people are like, oh my gosh, Adele's a TERF, and I will not buy her music anymore. So people were talking about her, and they're also bringing up J.K. Rowling, because J.K. Rowling is hated now because, she believes that men are men and women are women, and she'll stand with trans people, but she still has experiences that are unique to being a woman, and she's just not about to ignore that. So people are mad at Adele, who's just, like a global musical icon. Girl can sing, she really can. And she's been out for a very long time. So it's instead of like celebrating that, she's a good enough artist that she can just win in any category, which of course women can do that in music, not so much in sports when they compete against men. People are mad because she's still like, hey, I am a woman and I am a female artist, and I like being that. Some people are also mad at Dave Chappelle because he spoke out against some housing plans in his community in Ohio, because they wanted to build a bunch of low income housing near where he lives. And so he's like, I don't want that. I invest a lot of money in this town. If you guys would rather go with this plan and these folks, and I'm gonna like invest my money and stuff elsewhere. And it was like near to where he was. So people are like, he's terrible, he's racist and uppity, I guess is the word that you would use in such a measure like that, in that scenario. But maybe that's just a reflection of people in a certain area. They're of a certain income, and they don't want it to not be of that same property value. You could say that's classist if you want, but doesn't mean he's racist. Doesn't mean people are racist. So we can talk about it and go through the articles. I felt like the CNN one left some stuff out. Who wrote this? Lisa Respers France is her name. Probably I know she's a blacktivist. She's a black person, but I felt like our CNN article left some stuff out, so I had to do some more digging in it. And people had other concerns besides, hey, there are some poor folks moving in next door. So but we know how the news is. And I also want to talk about the White House and them weighing in on this Florida bill. I did mention it yesterday. But I did talk to some people yesterday and was just kind of working through this thought process. If you don't know, Florida, they're introducing a bill that they don't want you to discuss gender ideology, sexual orientation inappropriately through grade school level and stuff. So Biden spoke out against it, and the White House spoke out against it, and Jen Psaki had some words, and those darn Republican conservatives and so on. And it's interesting where the White House is deciding to fight. It's not surprising because Obama was big on these cultural sort of issue wars and stuff, and in a lot of ways, Biden is just like a third term, except he's more moronic. Or Obama was so stubborn about some stuff, but Biden is just so awful in so many different ways. Actually, they are bringing up Obama's coming back to the Hill, and he's gonna be doing some Zoom stuff with legislators, trying to push some stuff forward, I guess, some legislation for it. So things are so bad they gotta bring back their old guns. Um, some other presidents decided after they left, the White House, that they were just gonna chillax a bit, let other people sort of lead. But they got to rope back in Obama. But anyway, I'm not surprised at where Biden is going. There's this viral video I've shared on my social media about this black man who was a Biden voter, blue collar. He went on Fox News and was talking about all the ways he's so upset with the Biden administration. And one of the things he mentioned was how much of a gender theorist that Biden is, and he said he would have never voted for him if he had known. And I can understand if you have like a surface level view of politics or whatever, maybe you didn't know it was that deep, but if you did a little digging, I think you should have known that. And I talked about that video and went through it on the show one day. And I was just baffled because I'm like, how did people not know? How did people not see some of this stuff? So anyway, I want to go through this Jen Psaki video kind of bit by bit, because I think it's annoying how they always try to phrase stuff. And I'm like, what about like everyone else? Like all you can see is the victim you want to make, not realizing how much damage you might be doing to everyone else. So it's kind of hard for me to explain without like going through it. So we will go through it when we get to that segment. Before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. I'm very excited about some of the stuff that will be dropping pretty soon. So make sure that you're going to Black Tea News, that you're, putting in your emails and get like updates that kind of way. Make sure you're following me on most social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on Getter. All my handles are at Black Tea News. The only one that's different is Twitter, and that one is at True Black Tea. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Or you guys can, there's a little ticker tape at the bottom there that's with the PayPal. If you guys would like to do that way, like me, just whip out your phone, bloop, and then there's the donation. And I thank you guys, whoever supported has in the past, who will in the future, everyone who shares a video. I saw that you guys were sharing the video I posted last night. That was a clip from, I think it was Monday's show about it was Monday, because I was like ready to go because I couldn't do it over the weekend, about a big TikToker who's a history teacher who was talking about why we needed a black person in the Supreme Court and why it was good that Biden was doing that. And the white people just need to be quiet because they haven't had systemic racism and stuff, or they've benefited from the systems of power and all this other kind of stuff. And then she gave like a crazy example, and I ranted about that crazy example for maybe 10 minutes, maybe more, I don't know, but it was like 30 minutes. You guys watched it and shared it. So I thank you guys for watching that and sharing those things along. But make sure you go to the website, check out that kind of stuff. And if you want to keep seeing things like that, please consider supporting Black Tea News at blacktnews.com/donate. And also check out different merchandise that we have. Like this, I voted for Trump and all I got was historic peace stills, gas under $2 and tax cuts and et cetera, and all in this lousy t-shirt. So that's a good one. I'm not the victim you're looking for. That's one that I really like. And FYI, I do write books. I am working on a political book, but this one's not a political book. And I do have a nonfiction book called Slay Your Fear that you guys can get. But you guys know that I am about to release a book on Valentine's Day. You can get it for pre-order right now if you're going to get it on Kindle. It's called Anubis, Princess of the Damned. It's a vampire YA fiction book. So if that floats your boat and you know somebody who's into that, go ahead and consider, pre-ordering that now. If you want a paperback, you're going to have to wait to the day that it drops. So please consider supporting. That's something that I've been doing for a long time. I finished my first novel 2008, I think. I was in college, and then I couldn't, I was going to my first semester at CCS, and all I could afford to end up doing was a semester. And then I painted a mural over a church baptismal of Jesus. It was 8 feet by 11 feet. I had to build a floor and paint on a scaffold and stuff, which I'm a little of height. So it's quite an experience. Anyway, with that money, I went and I bought a laptop and I started, writing my first novel because I saw Twilight was the big thing back then. I think they were just like kind of coming out with those films, and they were talking about Stephenie Meyer and how much, that she was the next J.K. Rowling. And then I was like, well, let me pick up this book. And then I read Twilight and I was like, I can totally do this. So then I started writing books. And I wrote my first one in 6 months. And then from that point in time, now I have 31, I think, that I finished. Maybe more. I think that's maybe 31. I've been so much stuff with Black Tea. I have a lot that are like almost finished, but I think it's still the number's 31. But this will be my 15th book that I've published. So I thank you guys who's been interested and picked up some books. Some of you have, for example, gotten Super Kid and got it, given it to your kids. That's a chapter book. It got a lot of great conservative values in there. So I thank you guys for you buying those and supporting in that sort of way. This really is a love and a passion of mine. So you can find out all that stuff at blacktnews.com. If you hit the merchandise button, there's a banner that will lead you to Ninja Disc Publishing, and that is my book website. So consider checking that stuff out. And also, I want to thank Bride Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They're just here to uplift conservative voices. So thank you to them. And let's jump into the news. So you guys know that I like to start off with something funny. And there were quite a few things that I saw in my timeline that were quite funny, but I always like to support this particular comic book artist, G Prime 85 on Twitter. If you follow him, or if you're on social media, you can go follow him. His name is George Alexopoulos. I do have a full-length interview with him that I did about a year ago, I think, but you guys can check that out on YouTube, and I think it's also on Facebook as well. But this story, there's a girl in detention, and she sees this, he's like, oh, that was so cool what you did with the mask. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest rebel in the school. And she says, what are you in for? Then he has a Make America Great hat, Make America Great Again hat. So I think the background of this one, I'm not totally sure, but I think it's because there was a school where they told the kids that they have to mask up or leave, and then a ton of them just walked out. So people are like, oh my gosh, Gen Z is going to be the ones who save us. So perhaps, and that does make me happy, people just think millennials are trash, and they're just like, this is the only hope, the new generation. My brother, he was preaching on Sunday. He said he was mad when he found out he was a millennial. He's like on the higher end, the older age range of millennials. But yeah, but maybe Gen Z will save us. I have heard that there's more of them percentage wise. The youth are still like more left leaning in overall numbers, but the percentage of how conservative they are at their age is higher than like other generations. So, and as you tend to get older, tend to get more conservative, especially, or I guess particularly if you start having families and stuff. If you're always going to be like the single, I don't know, sort of bachelor or something, you may not necessarily go that way, but hopefully there's hope. Okay, so let's jump into, I want to go over this Adele story. So Adele, she won an award. She was here's a report from page 6. Adele slammed for telling gender neutral award show she loves being a woman. Isn't that crazy? People are mad because a woman says she loves being a woman. That is where we are. That is where we are right now in this world, guys. That's really crazy. So Adele is being accused of transphobia for declaring at woke gender neutral award show that she loves being a woman. The Rolling in the Deep singer, which by the way, that's a great song. She did a great job. Singer made the remark at Tuesday's Brit Awards that she collected the prize for Artist of the Year, a newly created category merging the old Best Male and Best Female Artist Awards. So they're doing these sort of things to get rid of the neutral, to make everything more neutral, I guess. Maybe they figure that's a way to solve problems. So if there's a trans male artist, he doesn't beat a woman who's genuinely a woman, and maybe they feel like they could just like get rid of everything. And I guess it's an easier thing to do. You can't really do that with sports so much, because if you do that and make everything neutral, the men will just wipe out women, as what happens when a trans woman who's a biological male decides to compete with females. So if you did that with sports, women just wouldn't be like in there at all. They would just decimate women's sports. But I guess they feel that they can do that with music. I don't know if that's the reason why they decided to do it that way. But anyway, they made a neutral category. But another issue with that is, and I don't know if they made up other categories, but I mean, they are giving out less awards. At certain awards, and I don't watch a lot of the award shows, but I know there's like best female artist of the year, best male artist of the year, and then they'll have like overall best artist of the year or something like that sometimes. Like at MTV Music Awards, when Taylor got, Kanye all those years ago, she won like best female artist or best female video, but like Beyonce got the like top award, and he was like, Beyonce had the greatest music video of all time, which I don't know what that's about, because it wasn't. Fight me. It really wasn't. Not that it wasn't entertaining, I guess, but they're definitely better all time. Come on, Kanye. And that created a big moment for him. That created a big moment for Taylor. And I think that was like her first like award show. And she was just like, oh, Kanye, that's cool. And he just comes out to diss her. But anyway, they could still keep best female and male and have the best artist all time. But maybe they want to just nip any sort of controversy with people who want to compete in the female, who feel that they're female, who aren't really female, and just be like, we're going to create neutral categories. But I don't know what other categories they may have made up more awards, but they are giving out less if they don't have the male and the female, and it's just gender neutral. So anyway, she said, I understand why the name of this award has changed, but I really love being a woman and being a female artist. I do, she said, to huge cheers. To huge cheers. She said, I'm really proud of us. I really, really am, she said. So this should be like a strong, empowering female moment. She's like, I'm proud of us. I like being a woman. Female is future. Isn't that what people say? I don't know how the future is just female if we don't have the males to help us build the women. But that is a saying that someone made up. and people repeat it. But when a woman actually says, hey, I'm glad to be here, I like being a woman, and I'm proud of us, and she beats out a man, I believe it was Ed Sheeran, I'm sorry, who's also a great singer, and has come out with some great hits, that's just unacceptable. It's just absolutely unacceptable. So people are mad at Adele. And it says, despite support from the audience in London's huge O2 Arena, her comments quickly sparked outrage online, making her the latest high-profile figure accused of being a TERF, or trans exclusionary radical feminist. Please no, Adele can't be a TERF, a staunch feminist performer named Jacob told his thousands of Twitter followers. Who'd have thought Adele was a transphobe and would use her platform to call for the destruction of the trans community? That is intense. That is intense. I'm not aware that her comment did all that, but I guess you gotta read between the lines, guys. Especially the confused teenagers, another longtime Twitter user posted. It's just a longtime Twitter user that they put in the article? That's not even like an important person? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking a second to look more into this Twitter user. They are a longtime Twitter user, joined in 2011. They're not verified. They have like a few followers. They're following more people than than follow them. Wow. So that's the person who they decided to quote. So I did see people talking about Adele, but when I was searching for this when this first like popped off, there were more people I saw, at least in, I don't know if it was the algorithm or whatever that I'm falling under, but there's more people giving support and backing her up, and then also comparing her to J.K. Rowling. Because J.K. Rowling, she is adamant that a woman is a woman, and she wants to stand up for trans people. She doesn't want anyone to be discriminated against, but she's had certain experiences, good and extraordinarily bad, that she's went through as a woman, and you can't just, mix and match and switch back and forth and pretend like one is the other and the other is the other, and they're interchangeable. So of course, J.K. Rowling is this huge pain in the butt for people. She's hated. Their HBO just did a big special on Harry Potter. They brought back Daniel Radcliffe and I don't know all. I do think I know all their names, but I can't think of Emma Watson, right? And Rupert. I'm not. I've seen them all. I'm just not a big Harry Potter person, and I can't think of all their name. But they brought back a lot of actors in the stuff, and people who worked along the film with the films. But they didn't have J.K. Rowling. They had some like old footage, old interviews, and people were like, I wonder why this is happening. And some of those people, some of those snot-nosed actors, actually spoke out against her at particular times for saying like normal stuff. And there was one actress who thanked J.K. Rowling because it was her first gig. And so she's like, I'll never forget. That was like my first, that put me on the map or started me on my journey. And people were mad at them for acknowledging a good thing that J.K. Rowling in her book series was able to do for her. So people dislike her. Her name is, if you look at like the Beast movies that come out now, and people have written articles about how the titles just get smaller and smaller with her name credits. You can't take away that this world and all this stuff was created from her. You can't take that away from her. But they sure are trying to pretend like they're letting it known that she's a nuisance for just acknowledging something that's true. Women are women, and she's experienced her life as a woman, and that's not interchangeable. And I understand that's a very controversial opinion to a lot of people. Doesn't make it not true. So people were comparing this to J.K. Rowling, and some people say that J.K. Rowling, she has too much kind of money, fame, and prestige and stuff to really be canceled. But I've heard Matt Walsh say, well, she really has nothing to gain for continue speaking out anyway. So you can admire still that she's willing to do that, and she's willing to do that because there's other people who will be canceled and have been canceled, and she stuck up for other people who just was like, women are women, but that makes you a TERF and a transphobe if you say something like that. And all Adele said was, "Women are women," and they make a fuss, and they write these articles, and they're like, "A long time Twitter user, a long time Twitter user." Oh, not even like a real person with like a profile, and their name is like Poof or Poomph, PUUUMPH. So they knew they couldn't even like quote the tag in it. They did like link back to it, but it's just funny when they want to make outrage stories so badly. They want to make it such a big thing. Anyway, others complained they lost a lot of respect for Adele. It would no longer spend a cent on her music, the Times of London noted. The attacks led to many spring to the 33-year-old star's defense. Thank you, Adele. Just thank you for speaking 2 words, being vilified woman, female, tweeted author and refugee campaigner Angel Roth. Author and media consultant Jane Simmons also said she didn't know whether to cry or scream at the latest attacks. And so other people spoke out around this, but mostly when I saw when this was popping up were people coming to her defense and saying she's just saying a normal thing, and there's no reason to try to cancel Adele because she said she likes being a female artist and that's what she is, and that she's proud of women. And people pretending like that somehow erases the existence of trans people. No, just because someone doesn't buy into your ideology doesn't just wipe you from the face of existence. It's not like Peter Pan, if you say fairies aren't real, that they drop down dead and then we have to like clap until you come back to life. That's not how real life works. And if you need other people to affirm your identity for it to be true, then I guess it really is a construct. If it's that fragile. And yeah, I went there. Anyway, let's move on to the Dave Chappelle story. So Dave Chappelle, he made some waves at a council meeting regarding some city building projects.
Can I go? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dave Chappelle. I just want to say, and Marianne, I can talk to you about this privately. I don't know why the village council would be afraid of litigation from a $24 million a year company while they X out a $65 million a year company. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you. You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So.
Can you imagine being like at a city council meeting and Dave Chappelle just pops up? Like, oh, that's Dave Chappelle. Or if it was like anybody, like I guess really famous and stuff. But so he lives in Ohio, and so this is a CNN article. A plan for affordable housing portion of new development in Yellow Springs, Ohio, has reportedly been scrapped after comedian Dave Chappelle added his voice to those opposing it. According to the Dayton Daily News, a plan for Oberer homes can move forward, but without the affordable housing that originally had been planned as part of a development of single family homes, townhomes, and duplexes to be built on a 53-acre area at the south edge of town. The publication said the village has been working with Oberer on the development. In a statement to CNN on Thursday, Chappelle's publicist Carla Sims wrote, Dave Chappelle didn't kill affordable housing. Concerned residents and a responding village council killed a half-baked plan which never actually offered affordable housing. So apparently they said they were going to do it, but they didn't even have like a detailed plan of actually doing the affordable housing, FYI. Chappelle, who plans to open a restaurant and a comedy club in the area under his company Iron Table Holdings, LLC, was one of the several who spoke out Monday during a village council meeting about the project. As seen on a video posted on Yellow Springs Community Access YouTube page, Chappelle questioned why the council would support the housing plan while it kicks out a $65 million a year company. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you, Chappelle said. You all look like clowns. I'm not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. The Dayton Daily News reported that he was one of the numerous residents who spoke out against the affordable housing portion. Without question, Dave Chappelle cares about Yellow Springs. Sims added in her statement to CNN, he sewn into the fabric of the village. The passion with which he delivered his comments during the village council meeting was just as evident as when he fought to create living wage jobs with his famed summer camp for residents during the height of the COVID pandemic. Sims continued, neither Dave nor his neighbors are against affordable housing. However, they are against the poorly vetted, cookie-cutter, sprawl-style development deal, which has little regard for the community, culture, and infrastructure of the village. The city council ultimately deadlocked on it by voting 2 and 2 against. In December 2021, the Yellow Springs News reported that Chappelle, who lives near the planned development, said during the council meeting that he was adamantly opposed to the proposal and that would add 140 mixed income level homes to the village. I've invested millions of dollars in town. If you push this thing through, what I'm investing is no longer applicable, he said. I will say that Oberer can buy all the property from me if they want to be your benefactor, because I will no longer want to. Now, when I said the CNN article left some stuff out, obviously Dave Chappelle being at this meeting saying these things, it can get clicks, and people are going that route talking about, well, Dave Chappelle doesn't want low income housing. And people are throwing that racist label on it, but could it just not be a racial thing? There's white people who are in low income housing, by the way, and all, it's not just poor black folks. If that's what you're just thinking, moving in with the low income housing, but maybe it's just they want a certain sort of community standards or whatever being upheld, I guess, with the different property and stuff. And sometimes the community housing, the income housing, they keep it like really, really low. So you could be someone who's maybe like struggling a little bit. There was a time when I was like looking for apartments some years ago, and I just made too much money to get in. And I'm like struggling. I'm struggling. And they're like, no, you still make too much money to live here. But I'm just thinking, if I did live in a place like this, it would help me get further along with where I would like to go. Because obviously these prices are cheaper, but I was not making a lot, and I had my bills, and I had, I was living with my sister, and we were looking for a place or some kind of apartment, and they said we made too much. But to us, we're like, no, we're not making too much. What do you mean? But according to their numbers, we were making too much. And that's how it is with like a lot of low income stuff, including like welfare. People will get on the welfare, and then if you get to a certain point, you can't be on anymore. So there's like this gap of, I'm here at this point of my life, and if I do better, I'm going to be cut off like cold turkey. And it's hard to sort of get ahead when there's not this like transitional gap. So, but the other complaints that people had, which CNN didn't bear any in the article, was just all about the low income housing. They're all talking about, oh, well, what there's not enough street. They said it's going to start tearing up different sidewalks. The roads are very narrow. And so they started talking about how the development was going to start changing the dynamic of actually where they live, and not just, oh, they don't want the people there. And this is like happening like right behind, like adjacent to where Dave Chappelle lives. And I'm sure that would be a selling point, like, hey, you can live behind Dave Chappelle. So it did get voted down, but there was a lot of other complaints from people that you could read in different articles, like the Villager's Voice where is this, ysnews.com, that I think that's like a more of a local sort of paper that were talking about it, and they talked about a lot of different things. So it wasn't just the only thing. They weren't just talking about low income housing, but of course that's the pitch that CNN wanted to go with, and that's what people are talking about on like Twitter and so on. And so they're going to still build some stuff, but they're going to scrap the low income. But apparently they didn't have that really planned and well thought out either. So, people act like this is a huge racial issue, but I've lived in the ghetto. I've lived in trailer parks. I've lived in on subdivisions with golf courses. I've like had a pretty diverse experience living, at least in Michigan, in all kinds of different places. And it's nice when you get in the burbs, man. It's nice when you get in the burbs. And since Dave Chappelle is uber rich, he probably lives I lived in a nice burbs out where I was at when I lived in Clarkson, but I'm assuming Dave Chappelle probably lives in a much nicer place in Ohio than I did. So, if people are like, oh, you can get this low income housing and move like right behind Dave Chappelle, I think people might have legitimate concerns, like, who's coming up behind me? So you can not like it. You can say that's classist if you want and be upset about it. But just to paint him, people trying to paint him as racist, and the community members who talked about this, who want to maintain the sort of integrity of their neighborhoods and they're concerned about their roads and that some of this property, the projects taken up would have to like destroy sidewalks, and they wouldn't have these sort of, it would change the actual landscape of where they live. And they're talking about it'll be kind of more, or the traffic will be really bad as well. They're talking about concerns about the roads. It was a lot deeper than low income people moving in. So you'd have to dig a little bit deeper than the CNN article. And I don't know what exactly the purpose is of the framing here. I mean, they did list what some of the stuff that Dave Chappelle mentioned, but there's stuff that's more to it than that. It's just really deeper than the headline and what people are tweeting about. So I just wanted to mention it. Let's talk about Biden. So again, I mentioned this the other day. In Florida, they are creating a bill or passing out a bill or pushing it through that in schools, they don't want you to be able to have teach certain things to your kids that they don't deem are age appropriate. And we're talking about like elementary sort of age. So it's like, I guess, kindergarten up to like 7th grade. And so they don't want you to have like inappropriate conversations about gender or gender ideology or any kind of, I guess, sexual related nature. And especially not having the teachers initiate it. Now, a lot of people feel like you're inflicting free speech in schools. You're supposed to have curriculums and stuff. I don't remember knowing a lot of personal things about my teachers. And there's huge trends, and we played some stuff on this show. And if you go on TikTok, there's teachers, I almost said crazy, but yeah, I guess they're crazy. And some of them are even predatory in nature. Like there was this one person who did a video, and she had the Rolling in the Deep song, the "You're gonna wish you never had met me." And the captions were for all of you parents who don't want to teach your kids about gender ideology, I'm gonna do it anyway. And so she's like looking at the screen, like coming closer, all kind of creepy and stuff. And and that got huge waves on TikTok, and people were talking about this is gross, and people all across the spectrum were acknowledging it was gross, including people who were gays, who were lesbians, bisexuals. They're like, let kids be kids. Please don't be like a predator and trying to they're trying to validate themselves through kids and live sort of vicariously through them. And if the world outside can't accept them, they know that these kids are malleable. So they're like, well, you won't teach them these things, and you guys are bigoted. So I'm gonna, make sure that these kids learn the right way and learn all the things I think they need to. And so I mentioned we've talked about this before, but there was teachers in California who would be predators to students. They'd indoctrinate them, get them in these clubs, and they wouldn't be official clubs, so that they didn't have to tell the parents if they were actually on the rosters of the clubs. And so they asked, like, I don't know if they're there. I don't know if they're in that club. And they would like listen to their conversations in the hallways, or when they did remote learning, they would look at their browser history. And one child, she's a girl, and then they convinced her that she was a boy, and they changed her medical records, which were like wrong and missing important information. And when the parents didn't respond the right way, they like contacted like CPS and stuff. And so Abigail Schreier raised alarm about that. And but other, they started having like meetings and whatever, and parents are speaking out about the kind of stuff that they did. But the crazy thing about these teachers is that they've spoken to other teachers at like different conferences, and they try to teach them and have taught other teachers how to indoctrinate these kids, especially in conservative areas where they know parents will not like this stuff. So there's so many great teachers out there in the world. There really are. But there are a lot of activists that are teaching right now, and a lot of them even flaunt it on places like TikTok because they are that bold. There's one video of a teacher who didn't have a United States flag, so they had their kids pledging to the pride flag instead. I think she got outed and in trouble, but of course she got outed. She put it on TikTok. So I don't know if she was fired totally, but there was like stories that the school spoke out against it or whatever, or she got in some trouble for it. But they know that parents wouldn't like it, but they feel that it is their moral duty to raise your kids around you, despite you, in spite of you. So in Florida, they want to put out a bill that you cannot teach these kids or have these inappropriate conversations. Certain conversations are for the parents to have with their kids, and you coming in trying to indoctrinate them with all this sort of like, you can be any gender you want. They don't want them to do that. Not from kindergarten to like 7th grade. So Biden spoke out against it. We showed this yesterday. He said, I want every member of the LGBTQI plus community, especially the kids who will be impacted by this hateful bill, to know that you are loved and accepted just as you are. I have your back, and my administration will continue to fight the protections and safety you deserve. And I'm like, one, I think it's funny because he does have a history of being like against don't ask, don't tell. And you can say, well, the world's different now. And I'm like, well, though at least they were adults. Like, but you talking about like kids. And when you make statements like this, is this for the children? Is this for the children? Or is this, because it seems like it's the teachers who want to push certain stuff. And so you're not backing and trying to affirm these kids. We're very malleable. A lot of people who have questions about gender normally grow out of it. If you read a book like Abigail Schreier's book, she believes there is a social contagion to a lot of this trans ideology stuff that's going on now. And you're seeing it exploding in clusters, usually of like different social groups, normally young women who have a lot of other kind of issues like depression and she said normally they may be like anorexic or bulimic, or maybe they're cutters or might against demonic possession, all sorts of other things, but instead they're turning to sort of gender ideology. She's written a lot of fascinating stuff, and she's not someone who's hard right or whatever. Ben Shapiro was talking about, he tweeted out like, Biden's coming, they're coming for your kids. These people are coming for your kids. And she said, if this was a few years ago, I would have thought Ben Shapiro was exaggerating. She's like, but sadly, I know that this is true. And man, she wrote a piece about this custody battle between this father and this mother. They're divorced, and she wants to raise her son as a girl, and she was going through the court case and how the judge was going at him, the dad, and it turns out that the judge was like very biased, and he ended up like losing custody of his son, but the judge was openly supportive of her trans child. So I'm like, that no one thought that was like a conflict. Maybe he didn't know that at the time, but like I was listening to Ben Shapiro talk about it on the way like over to the studio, and I was just so angry. I was just so angry that this dad is losing custody. He can't even go to therapy with his son. He has lost all parental rights to his child, and so she's had to hear all kinds of stories about this as she wrote the book, Irreversible Damage, and she wrote a fabulous article. In the whole like hour we like went through it and read it, about how the number one thing she is asked by people is, how does it feel to be so hated? That's her like number one question. How does it feel to be so hated? Because people hate her. And she said she didn't write it, for any praise or adulation or whatever. She simply wrote the story because it's true. Talking about about irreversible damage. She was telling the stories because parents reached out about this phenomenon sweeping over the kids. They're like, I know my kids, and I don't believe that they are trans, but they got into these sort of social groups, and so she would interview parents. She talked to all these different people, talked to different to specialists, and there really is such a huge social push right now. So when Biden tweets out stuff like this, and they frame it as, oh, we're helping the kids. No, you're helping a lot of adults who want to affirm themselves through these kids. And he's I'm sure he didn't write that tweet, but he's let his administration basically, he handed the reins to extreme activists. And I want to go through this video that Jen Psaki was asked about it, because it really annoys me. She really annoys me.
This afternoon, the White House issued a statement criticizing Florida legislation that would restrict classroom discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity. It's relatively rare for the White House to weigh in on state-level legislation, so you can speak about the decision to weigh in on this particular bill and why this issue rose to the level that the White House wanted to put something out there.
Well, for those of you who weren't following this, maybe all of you were, but let me first say that every parent, as one myself too, hopes that our leaders.
She mentions that she's a parent so many times. She's like, as a parent, and she every opportunity to humanize herself. Like, we all know you got kids, Jen. Serial killers have kids too, Jen. It doesn't make you a better person. Okay.
Will ensure their children's safety, protection, and freedom. And today, conservative politicians in Florida rejected those basic values by advancing legislation that is designed to target and attack the kids who need the support the most.
Okay. Those are lies. The bill doesn't target anyone, and it maybe you could argue maybe it targets these activist teachers and puts them on notice and thin ice. And I heard Ben talk about, like, I want teachers to be on thin ice, because you have an extraordinary power when you get to educate someone's child. And so if you should be going with the Ron DeSantis was asked about this. He's like, people need to be learning math, science. People don't understand civics at all today. Like, those are the things we need to be focusing on in school. There's so many kids who don't know so much. People always complain about how behind the U.S. is, but you want to replace your education with with CRT and teaching the real history and the 1619 Project, where even the author who created it says it's not objective, it's subjective, which means it's basically like historical fiction. So why do you want to teach that stuff in schools? And then you want to replace it with all this ideology of, hey, you don't really have to be a boy, you don't have to be a girl, you can be whatever you want. I saw articles where they're like, kids may show signs that they're a different gender early on and what to look for. And it's like, hey, the girl might like playing with trucks, or maybe the girl just likes playing with trucks and she's still a girl. I've heard so many women say that they are so glad that they grew up in the time that they did without all of this sort of confusion. You can be an effeminate boy, you can be a masculine sort of female, but that doesn't erase that you're a boy or a girl. But they're trying to blur all those sort of lines. So if that's kind of stuff that you want to inflict on the kids, if you're the kind of teacher who's like, I don't care what the parents teach, I'm going to teach what I want to teach, yes, you should feel targeted on thin ice, because you're not supposed to be teaching that kind of stuff. And this sort of bill just empowers parents that, hey, don't teach my kids things that are not age appropriate. In some conversations, like who they want to have sex with, those are conversations that we would like to start having at home, and not by some little activist weirdo. So pretending like it's targeting, and she says the most vulnerable. These kids are vulnerable. They're very malleable. But the conservatives aren't targeting them. They're concerned about how they are targeted by activist teachers. So they're looking so hard at trying to make their victims so they can make their case, and they're focusing on kids who are LGBT in elementary school, I guess. But what about these kids who are indoctrinated, like that 12-year-old girl in California who is indoctrinated and convinced to be a boy? They are a victim of overzealous teachers who wanted to push an ideology and push the parents out of the conversation, and they went too far. But who's to blame, or who's the drama in this situation? Who's the bad guy? Conservatives. I can't stand her.
kids from the LGBTQI plus community who are already vulnerable to bullying, and we've seen that in study after study, and violence just for being themselves and just for being who they are. Make no mistake, this is not an isolated action in Florida. Across the country, we're seeing Republican leaders.
I want to talk about the violence thing. I don't know if she's talking specifically about violence towards children, but there's been a talking point from the Biden administration. Chelsea Clinton has repeated this, and I've seen a lot of social justice warriors having this talking point, and they'll talk about all the like the trans people who've been murdered and killed because they're trans, and they'll push that really hard. And if you do look into those cases, most of them are because of some kind of like domestic situation, or because they happen to be like sex workers and they're involved in some kind of dangerous career move. And I'm not justifying that. Obviously, those incidents are awful. But they paint it as if people are hunting them down and killing them because they are trans, rather than they are in a situation that makes their things extraordinarily more dangerous for them. So there are big talking points. I don't know if that's specifically what Jen is referring to or what study she's talking about. Perhaps if there's a good reporter in the room, they could have been like, can you please cite your study so we can look further and deeper into that? But I obviously there's a lot of people today who do not feel that they are oppressed because they feel very bold and emboldened. For example, to do the video I talked about where someone's like, I don't care what you parents think, I'm gonna push this ideology. So if people are that bold to like announce that they're gonna be a predator, it's not like how it was like in the 80s, or before then. Definitely living in a different world. Bullying is never okay. Bullying is never cool. A lot of people get bullied. A lot of fat kids get bullied in school, for example. It's never cool. But they're trying to shift who the victim is so they can make the Republicans look like the bad guys when the injustice is happening to these kids, when these activists want to inflict their ideology on them. She's a parent. She keeps mentioning it. Does she not care about what her child is taught? I'm pretty sure she does. She puts them in a nice little private school. She came out for Youngkin in the mask and stuff like that, and she's like, as a parent who has kids in these schools, is like, you didn't say public school, Jen. You put them in these nice little private schools. I'm not just in private schools. Just stating a fact.
Taking action to regulate what students can or cannot read, what they can or cannot learn, and most troubling, who they can or cannot be. This is who these kids are, and these legislators are trying to make it harder for them to be who they are.
These kids know how they are, who they are in kindergarten, Jen. They know who they are in first grade, second grade, third grade. That's who they are, Jen. Really? Funny story. I mean, kids believe the darndest things. They'll believe that they're a toaster, a dog, cat. When I was young, my dad was telling us what heaven would be like and stuff, and he was big into like end times, Bible prophecy, all this kind of other stuff. So anyway, he was talking about how when we die and go to heaven, we'll have powers like the X-Men, and this was in the height of like the 90s X-Men cartoon was like da-na-na-na-na. That show was slamming. And so, do you know what I said to my father as a young child? I said, "Kill me, Daddy, please." And he was like, obviously he didn't do that. I explained why that was not a good thing. I could just wait until the appropriate time when the Lord decided to take me, and why my father was not going to murder me because I wanted X-Men powers. Okay, so sometimes kids don't know what's best for them. Sometimes they don't know what's best. And sometimes parents don't put things the best way. I just wanted to put that out there too. But kids in kindergarten don't know who they are. there's that young boy in kindergarten cop who said boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. That's pretty simple. People don't even seem to know that anymore, won't accept that anymore. So if y'all confused, I don't know what y'all want to teach these kids. Talking about who they are. They don't want age inappropriate things taught to their kids. That's what the bill is. They totally mischaracterize this thing so they can paint them as villains. They are really going hard against parents and parent protections and transparency. And it's not only with this, obviously with CRT. Obviously with CRT, and they're still on with the mask. They said we still are with the CDC recommendations with the kids and masking. And you know why? Because that's what the teachers unions wanted, the craziest kind of stuff during this pandemic. And I don't know why they're still like, Ms. Weingart is still on that stuff. But they're willing to push this to the edge all the way if they have to. They have their darn Justice Department looking at parents, school board association writing a letter saying, hey, can you use things like the Patriot Act? And the White House was coordinating with the National School Board Association. And it wasn't even the whole board. It was like 2 people. It was like 2 people, but they were coordinating with the White House and telling them what kind of stuff to put in it. And one of the articles that they used for examples of how parents were out of control was a dad who was arrested who did get a bit rowdy, but his daughter was sexually assaulted in a bathroom by a boy in a skirt. And they lied about it too. So they are willing to go all in. I think this is a foolish campaign strategy for the, obviously Biden's not running again. Biden's not going to run again. I don't get it.
So we felt it was important to speak out against this action and speak really and felt it was important to do that today. Go ahead.
Yikes, I can't stand her. I can't stand her. Can't stand Biden. I can't stand her. Can't stand Biden. They just lie through their teeth. And you guys know I went to that last year. I went to that Democrat Party picnic, and I was like, they didn't know I was Republican. I was like, are you guys really want to keep pushing critical race theory? Like, I think this is a losing issue. I gave them some good advice, and I talked to the chair. So this wasn't like a rando. This is a chair, and she didn't know much about it. But that's what they're pushing, and they're pushing it because Republicans don't like it. So like, we just need people to run for school board. That eventually that's what they got to. But they said the people who go to these school board meetings are racist. They're foaming at the mouth. They look in the depths of their souls and they're racist. When they're just people who care about their kids and they don't want them to be indoctrinated. Now maybe you can think that they're wrong. Maybe you think they're exaggerating. But you can have that discussion, but you don't have to dismiss them by calling them racist. But that's what they're willing to say about these bullies. Or these parents who they think are bullies, I guess. And as far as this gender issue, the White House position they're taking, that these conservatives who they're attacking these kids, and then they've dubbed this the "Don't Say Gay" bill. There's people who are gay, lesbian, and bisexual who do not like the aggressive nature of the trans community. They don't like these videos of these teachers like, yeah, I'm going to teach this stuff. Yeah, I came out to the kids and injecting all their personal kind of life and ideology to these children. I did not remember knowing much about the teachers at my school, about their personal lives. Maybe a thing here or there, but they're authority figures. Are there to teach you math, science, English, history, and so on. There were some people who got really cozy with students. Somebody ended up in jail, if you catch my drift. Like, you're just not supposed to be all up in the business like that. Or at least that's how it was when I was in high school, in middle school, in elementary. So there's people who are part of the community that don't like this stuff. But I think the purpose of the critics naming it the "Don't Say Gay" bill is to stir back those feelings of when you have the obstacle of gay marriage. And there's a lot of people who are gay who are like, you know what? I want low taxes. I don't like all this authoritative stuff. I don't like, CRT and all this kind of stuff. But if they can reintroduce that sort of fear, like they're coming at me like they're coming at my identity about, who I'm dating. It's not even about that, but that's how they want to phrase it. That's how they want to phrase it. That I think they want to stir up those old feelings. And if that is the case, I guess it's a decent strategy if people aren't going to see right through it. Hopefully they will. Hopefully they will. Someone said kids, they don't know how to wipe their butts in the first and second grade. That's true. In some regards, like I hope you guys are sending your kids to school that know how to wipe themselves. But the point is that there's just a lot of kids who need help, and they don't know a lot of stuff. That's why you make stories. You may have like these life lessons, but you make them about dinosaurs or something. Like Land Before Time. Like, we need to teach these kids acceptance. I'm like, go watch Land Before Time. That's you don't need to teach them about every single flag in the pride spectrum to teach acceptance. You can just like show them that film. They may cry though, because it's also traumatizing when Littlefoot's mama died. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. That's the end of it. We were living in a crazy time, and these social issues really do mean a lot, and they can push a lot of people to voting the right sort of way, I think. I don't think Trump would have got elected in 2016 if not for these sort of cultural issues. It's like people sort of have such short-term memory, and they don't recall like a lot of the stuff like on college campuses when people are like anti-free speech, and there's like these feminists are like doing some really crazy stuff, and Hillary kept kind of pushing that way, and like she accused Bernie Sanders, implied he was sexist, and there are people on the campaign train saying if you don't vote for Hillary Clinton, then you're basically a traitor to your sex. And then when she lost, Michelle Obama said women are voting against their own voice. Just crazy stuff. But there was even more crazy stuff that was happening across the country and was getting big news. So there's a lot of people who were engaged in the cultural wars, and they saw Trump as someone who was willing to fight. So whether Trump is the person who's going to be back in 2024 as like the comeback president, to be like, I was right about this stuff and things just got worse. And people are gonna be like, you know what? He has a point. He has a point. So he could be that person, or people see that Ron DeSantis is willing to also take on these sort of culture wars. But I don't think we need some kind of wussy sort of president who's gonna come in and just be too chill about this stuff when people are trying to fundamentally demolish our country. and low taxes is cool. People want this inflation to end. They want jobs and all these other things. But if we don't pay attention to at the school level that they are trying to indoctrinate your kids on so many different levels, and the CRT stuff is really big. But now they're kind of calling it diversity, equity, inclusion training, which we've talked about why that's a terrible idea. And broken down some of the faulty sort of thinking in that regard as well. But this gender stuff is really important too, and people are so aggressive about it. Like Adele said, she's happy to be a woman, and she was proud to win her award, and she likes being a woman, and saying that should not be controversial. But that's the sort of world that we are living in. And maybe they were ginning up a lot of the controversy since they had to quote a random Twitter user. But why do they want people to have this opinion like that's something that you're going to get canceled for saying? Why do they want people to feel like that? Because they don't want you to speak up about these issues. They want you to shut up, and they want you to comply. So please go to blacktnews.com. Check out my website if you enjoy what I do here. Go to blacktnews.com/donate. Leave a donation. Please make sure you're following me on all my socials: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Getter. If I know most of you like watching on Facebook, but please consider also subscribing on YouTube as well. The only handle that I have that's different is on Twitter, and that one is @TrueBlackT. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I want to talk about this Madison Cawthorn story. They're trying to make it so he can't run again. And so I'm going to be covering that tomorrow along with some other news. So join me tomorrow. God bless.